Welcome to the Weekly Juice Podcast, where we discuss all things real estate, personal finance, investing, entrepreneurship, and the many ways to achieve financial independence. We interview accomplished investors and entrepreneurs with the goal that their stories inspire you to take control of your financial future. Here to get your creative juices flowing, while also documenting their own personal investing journeys, are your hosts, Corey Jacobson and Ryan Bevilacqua.
Welcome back to the Weekly Juice. As always, it's your boys, Ryan and Corey here with another episode for you. Today, we had an unbelievable episode. One of our top dog guests to date. Proud to announce that we interviewed Tarek El Moussa. He's a real estate investor and TV personality that you probably all know from his hit HGTV show, Flip or Flop. You also may know his wife, Heather, from the hit Netflix show, Selling Sunset. But Tarek's an incredibly passionate person and just motivated to go all in on life. He took us through his entire story of how he got into real estate investing, but also how he beat cancer twice, all going through filming and investing and building his business. He is just an incredibly passionate person that has a knack for finding deals, putting deals together, and then raising capital. He's done it all, but it was kind of cool to learn a little bit about the man, the myth, the legend behind the face, if you will, on TV. We actually got introduced to Tarek from one of our good friends, Brian Wagers. He is the chief investment officer at Elevate Commercial Real Estate down in Arkansas. And it's funny enough, I actually saw Brian and Tarek filming together on social media. And I was like, oh, wow, I wonder how Brian knows Tarek. And then fast forward to a couple of DMs later, we found out they're doing business together. Brian's operating the deals and Tarek is providing the capital. Now, both of their companies go all in and do like, for example, Tarek doesn't just capital raise. He also finds deals and puts them together. But for their partnership that they have going on here for now, Tarek is handling the funding and Brian is handling the operations side of the business. And they make for a power team, I'll say.
Yeah. One of the coolest things that you'll learn in this episode about Tarek is that he was basically faking it till he made it. Like he he just reached out to production companies. He had like a couple flips under his belt. He's known as the flipping guy. And he's just like, how do I get my name out there? How do I get more known? How do I get people to recognize me? I got to be on TV. And he talks about the story. And then he just reached out to film companies. And then they're like, yeah, 10 months later, they're like, let's do it. And he's literally teaching himself how to flip while being filmed on showing the entire country how to do it. It's like, he just was like, I'm just not taking no for an answer. Like through his cancer, through everything. This is a motivational episode, really. But he's just an incredible story.
He made it feel like he was just an average Joe that made it through grinding and hard work. He talked about how he was in college and then became a real estate agent and made it all. He had $1 million house in his early 20s, had all the cars. And then 2007-8 hit, the world came crashing down. He had to start over essentially.
He was selling it. And then he like basically flipped it, Yes. No pun intended, but flipped it into the flipping business. He made all his money on the agent side first, right?
He did. And then, fast forward to a couple of mentors and he went to this big convention in Vegas that he'll tell us all about. But he's like, the way I'm going to get more deals coming in is by people knowing who I am. And he's like, I'm going to be on TV. And his wife at the time was like, how are you just going to get on TV? And we'll let him dive in and tell the story of how he did it. But he is just an average person that figured it out and made it. And it's awesome to see how much he's giving back. And he's willing to train and teach and coach people that want to become investors and how to do it. And he'll tell you how to get involved at the end of the show. And you can be part of his school. And there's just a lot of cool things. But for us, it was a full circle moment. We've gone to watching his show for Flop, and to be able to interview him and realize he's just a normal down to earth guy it's amazing. So
we definitely want to get to the episode, but first we got to catch up here. We got to just tell people what we're up to and, but stay around because this episode is incredible.
Yeah. So I guess just a little brief, you've spoken and we've listened. A lot of people say, hey guys, you just dive right into the episodes. We don't know a ton about you aside from what you tell us on the show. So I guess we'll just give you, starting moving forward, a little snippet on a day in the life of what we currently got going on now for us. I think it was actually funny that we're going to implement this short little segment in today. I'm going to keep it real with you guys. My wife just found out that she's being furloughed from her job. And 2 years ago or a couple of years back, this would have scared the shit out of me. And I would have been like, wow, okay, one of our income streams is gone and I just have mine. And so if I lose my job or I get furloughed or laid off, I'm in a world of hurt, right? And we're not going to be able to afford certain things, the mortgage, investments, just your lifestyle. But throughout the last couple of years, you've seen Corey and I put a major focus on personal finance, building our financial houses, investing and putting ourselves in the right rooms to learn from people that have made the mistakes before us. And I say all this to say, I put a plan into place. And I want to bring this up to you is if you're thinking to yourself, wow, if that happened to me today, we'd have an issue. Furlough is
you walked into here and I was like, everything good? And you're like, yeah, I'm good. Like it wasn't even like, obviously it'll be a hit, but you were fully confident that you're going to be totally fine. And I think it's just because of the systems and the foundation that you laid.
We have a plan for this, right? And the reason I'm bringing this up is not to come off as cocky, like, oh, woe is me, like, who cares if we lose an income? No, it's obviously not the best thing, but furloughing is essentially you still work for the company. In some states, you can still collect unemployment, and then they're like, hey, they may bring you back at a certain date. And so we have a plan in place here, but the thing is, I have a year's worth of an emergency fund. I have liquid cash if I need it. I have my investments if I need it. And so I bring this up to say is it goes back to some of our early episodes, Finance 101 and getting your financial house in order. And it's funny, if you go back to our first couple episodes, I was teaching everybody about this from the things that we learned. And it actually came to a head today where I was like, wow, thank God I did everything I did over the last couple of years to put the plan into place and have cash sitting in specific accounts and funds. So that way we plan for it. So needless to say, like she could be done for a year and we're good to go, if not more. Granted, we'll find things you and I, Corey, I say this is like, we're continually bringing in more income. And so the goal for me is, to have her not work. I was raise our kids eventually.
Yeah, so I was going to say, like, as you start to grow a family, like you might be in a position where she just doesn't even have to go back to work, which is great. Right. And it kind of just puts a little pressure on you, but I think you perform well under that pressure to be like, all right, well, maybe I have to step it up a little bit. And I bet she doesn't go back. And if she does, it's on her terms. And it's like whenever she wants to, she can do some freelance. She can do kind of the passion projects that she wants to do. I think the point is like you're in a position now where maybe she doesn't go back. Like, who knows?
We have the optionality. And I think that's the biggest thing. And once again, it goes to, there's, actually, if you go to, I'll plug one of our buddies here, Mark Russell. He's the founder of Better Wallet.
Oh yeah.
He has like a financially bulletproof checklist you can go through, and it's free. I think he clicked the link in his bio. It's actually funny. He's not promoting this and telling us to promote this, but this helps a lot because I actually just at my work, I led our team a training on his checklist, and I was like, listen, if you have all this put into place, you're going to be fine in the case of an emergency, but also to build wealth for your future. And so it's just a full circle moment for me today. It's actually interesting. We're interviewing a celebrity, but then also I'm like, oh, my wife got furloughed, and I genuinely don't care. Like it is real. The fear isn't there that once was, and I'm saying this, and I'm not trying to beat a dead horse, but if you're listening, just know that it is possible to build these income streams and you're making up the income that you would potentially lose, but you also have to have them in the correct silos. So go back to some of our earlier episodes. And even if you want to follow us on Instagram at Weekly Juice Pod, we put out content to teach you how to do this. And we can point you to a bunch of different episodes that will help you get your financial house in order. But that's the foundation. So that way you can go and have the cash to invest and build systems and build businesses. And I'm just so thankful that we've done what we've done, dude, because it's a blip on the radar. That's
what it's all about, man. It's like the fact that we're able to build this and give your wife, who I love, like the option to, because of what we're doing, the option to, if she gets let go or whatever happens, like life happens, and she can, and you guys are going to be good. So
totally. She's probably going to kill me for hearing this episode.
I honestly cannot wait until she hears it. She's
going to murder me.
But so before, I know we're about to dive into the episode. We mentioned probably the last one that Ryan and I did together, that we're going to have some deals coming up. That is still in the works, by the way. I know we haven't talked about it since, but we are going to have some bigger multifamily syndication deals coming up within Q1 and into Q2 of 2023. So if you want to be, on the list of getting some of these deals like presented to you and to look at, maybe you have some money set aside, click the link in our bio to be added to our investor list.
I actually have two more too for you. One, first off, thank you to those listening that have dropped us a review on Apple Podcasts. I will say there were a few incredible ones that just came through. I'm actually
really make me tear up sometimes.
I'm going to read one because I think it's important it's not to stroke the ego here, but it's just,
no, it's not about us. It's about these people feel that we're bringing them value. It's amazing.
It's absolutely incredible. I read one the other day and I literally almost started to cry because it's amazing. So first off, I want to thank those that have done it. And I would encourage, if you could please
it helps us a lot.
Leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, because it allows us to get big name guests like Tarek today. For example, like if we didn't have a show that was successful and that was showing certain views over time and 5-star reviews and people vouching for the show, there's no way we'd be able to share his story and bring him on the show and get to know him and how have you guys get to know him. So let me read this review. It's really cool. And it's, to be honest, I've never been hyped up this much in our lives. I
texted you. I'm like, dude, I'm at the gym. I just did 6 extra sets on the bench. Like, I was like,
unreal. I mean, it's a little over. I don't know if it's overhyped because it's hard to like feel a certain type of way about yourself, but I just want to read this. So thank you to whoever wrote this, but Corey and Ryan are the modern day teachers of personal finance that we all needed and didn't get in school. These guys are one of my favorite podcasts to listen to regularly because they give concrete numbers and actionable advice for any newbie. In fact, I let my kid listen to them too because they're more relatable, they keep it fun, and they don't use confusing jargon to gatekeep information. Every piece of content they publish has been chock full of gold nuggets that we should have learned in school but did not. So if you're new to personal finance or real estate and you want to learn from the best info from real people, these guys are your Plato and Socrates.
Dude,
come on.
We are not Plato and Socrates.
However, I love it though.
Yeah.
They eat, sleep, and breathe it. And they are proof that you don't need to pay for a fancy degree to be successful in life. But if you do need vital skills like personal finance and the willingness to learn and pay it forward like these guys are generously doing, you'll thank yourself. Thank you so much for your introduction to your YouTube connection. Our channels have also been providing us with steady income, 100, 200 as of the month of October 22. You guys are literally changing our lives for the better. That's great. I didn't even notice the bottom. So
yeah, I know. It's pretty funny. So look,
it's amazing.
We're thankful. We're going to do these little catch up episodes, catch up segments in the beginning so that we can keep you updated. That one was a little bit longer than we anticipated, but without further ado, let's dive in. This episode is awesome. Tarek really brings the heat.
Oh God. Yeah. Let's bring in Brian Wagers and Tarek El Moussa. All right, everyone. We have a very exciting episode for you today. We actually have 2 celebrities in the house. We have Tarek El Moussa of Flip or Flop, and then we also have Matt Damon in the house. He's a strapping young gentleman by the name of Brian Wagers, lookalike. If you don't get the joke,
Brian loves that. He thinks he looks just like Matt Damon. I see it, but I don't think I see it as much as you.
Yeah, dude, I love it. So I tell everybody, I'm like, yeah, follow my guy Brian. Looks like a young Born Identity Matt Damon, but. Guys, we are thrilled to have you on the show today. Brian, thanks for coming back. Tarek, welcome to the show. We're excited to have you guys.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. So, Brian, we already know a little bit of background on you, and we'll point people to your episode before. So we're going to dive in on Tarek's story in the beginning, just to give a little background on him, and then we'll talk about how you guys formed the partnership, all the cool things you have going on for 2023, and the outlook of real estate in your opinion. So with that, Tarek, if you could give a little brief background on yourself, who you are, and then how you got into real estate investing.
Sure. So I just want to start off with this. There are no entry to barriers when it comes to real estate investing. Meaning when I started, I had no skill, I had no money, I had no network, I had no connections. I was a poor kid living in my mom's garage because I couldn't afford to rent out my bedroom. So that's the truth. So all those people out there thinking, well, if I had this, well, if I had that, I could be a real estate investor. By the end of today's webinar, I hope all of that's gone and you convince yourself that you can do this, because the only person stopping you from doing this is you. So I started real estate at the age of 19, 20 years old. So when I was 19 years old, I was selling Cutco kitchen knives. I was right out of high school. Man, I hated college. I was driving around, couldn't find parking, couldn't find classrooms, forget my pencils, it was just a nightmare. And I hated school. And I was doing pretty good selling these kitchen knives. You know, I was making some decent money, enough to pay my rent and pay my bills, but nothing special by any means. And one day, I went to start making my sales calls and I realized I lost my entire lead book. So I had all my knife leads in this book that I had built, and I literally put myself out of business. And this was, this was 2003. So there was no tracking systems. There was nothing. It was just a book. So I'm at a Washington Mutual ATM in Cerritos, California. And man, I was looking at the ATM and I had what I like to call a defining moment. And a defining moment is a moment in your life that changes the trajectory of your life. And I had an oh shit moment. I'm running out of money. I looked up and I was like, man, what am I going to do? And I looked to the right and there was a crooked sign. This sign says, Wise Old Owl Real Estate School. So I took a second. I was like, you know what, man, if I could sell knives, I could sell houses. It's just bigger, right? So at that exact moment, I walked across the parking lot and I signed up to take these real estate classes. So a few months later, and at the time, just to give you a picture of my life, I'm living with my girlfriend in Cerritos, California. At the time, her parents wanted me out of that house. So I got kicked out of the house and we actually broke up. I called my mom. I was like, hey, Mom, I need to move back home. And I had moved out 9 months earlier. And she goes, and my parents had just got divorced. So she's like, well, I just rented out your bedroom. So I had nowhere to go. I said, okay, well, what if I stay in the garage? And she's like, well, if you want to stay in the garage, you can. But understand, this was a garage. The cars were in there. The dirt bikes were in there. The jet ski was in there. The spray paint cans, the tools. And I literally pushed a cot into the middle of the garage. So my first 6 months in the real estate business, man, totally struck out. No sales, nothing. And one day there was there were these agents in my office talking about how stupid other real estate agents were for going and getting training from this real estate coach named Mike Ferry. And I was a 20-year-old kid. I'm like, wait a minute. I had baseball coach, football coach, hockey coach. You can get a business coach? I was so young and naive. I didn't even know that business coaching was a real thing. So, young, stupid me, while these other agents are saying terrible things, I'm like, I got to go check this out. So it was at a Sequoia Athletic Club in Buena Park, California. I don't know if you've ever heard Mike Ferry speak, but this guy's a genius, man. He convinced me I could do anything. He convinced me I was the smartest guy, the best looking guy. I was going to be the richest guy. And at the end of this event, I was inspired. For the first time in my life, I got to hear a professional speaker. So I took a yellow piece of paper. I wrote him a note. It said, hey, Mike, my name's Tarek El Moussa. You don't know who I am today, but one day you will. That's all the note said. And by the way, he does know who I am today.
I'm sure he does.
And at the time, I was rock bottom. I was totally broke, no money, nothing. So I signed up for one-on-one coaching. It was $1,000 a month. Guys, I did not have $1,000 a month. This is back in 2003, which is like $3,000 a month today. So I put it on my credit card, man. And I told myself, it's like, listen, I gave myself 90 days. And here's what I told myself. I have 90 days to make it in real estate, or I have to stick with college. So so that's the deal. I made a deal with myself. So my deal was I'm going to work 6 days a week. I'm going to be the first one in the office. I'm going to be the last one to leave. And if I can't pull this off in 90 days and I fail, I'm going back to school. So here's what happened. Within 90 days, I went from being a broke 20-year-old kid living in my mom's garage to 90 days later, I earned over $120,000 in real estate commissions selling houses, which came to about $40,000 a month, right around my 21st birthday. I moved from my mom's garage and bought almost $1 million house in Orange County, California. So people say with real estate, it takes a long time to change your life and make a lot of money. I call bullshit. You can make money fast in this business. Okay? Get rid of the excuses. This is a sales business. You can make tremendous money fast when it comes to real estate sales and real estate investing if you're willing to put in the work and if you know what to do. So my life exponentially changed overnight. And here's the interesting thing. All I did was this. I called something called expired listings. An expired listing is a house that was listed with the real estate agent. If it didn't sell for the term of the contract, it notifies all the agents and the MLS that the home is no longer for sale, and you have a legal right to go solicit those listings. And of course, it's me and every other real estate agent trying to get the same deals. My first 3 weeks of doing this, I had already put together like $50,000 in future commissions in my pipeline. So I'm like, holy shit, I figured this out. So one night during this 90-day sprint that I had where I generated over $120,000, about 2 to 3 weeks in, I sold real estate all day and I got to my college class at night. It was from 7 to 10 p.m. And it was about the rocks and the science of Canada. And I remember sitting in the back of this classroom thinking, man, in 2 weeks, I put together $50,000 in commissions and I'm sitting here learning about rocks in Canada. What am I doing? I'm looking
You're in the wrong place.
I'm looking at the professor thinking, shit, I'm 20 years old. I just made more money in 2 weeks than you're going to make in 9 months. What am I doing in this classroom? So then I burned the boats, as they call it. I looked down. I looked at my backpack. I looked at my books. I looked at my Scantron. I looked at everything I had. I left it. I walked out of the classroom. And the reason I left it was simple. I couldn't go back. I didn't have the money. I'm not going to buy all those books again. I'm not going to buy that calculator again. I'm not going to buy that backpack again. So that was my last day in school. I left everything in that classroom, burned the boats, walked out, and never looked back. So I'm a big believer in going all in on yourself. But here's the thing. You can only go all in on yourself if you're the type of person that's going to go all in. A lot of people, they say, I'm going to go all in. I'm going to quit this, this, and this. I'm going to go full-time real estate. And then they work freaking 4 hours a day. I was working 12 to 18 hours a day, doing whatever it took to figure it out. So I left school. I'm now living in this like 3,000 square foot house. I'm a young kid. I got roommates. I have a Shark Tank, no furniture. And all my neighbors thought I was a drug dealer because I was so young. And from there, I started building teams. And then 2006 came around, inventory spiked. Everything I was doing stopped working. And I went out telling everybody, hey, I think a crash is coming. This was in 2006. And everybody's like, oh, you don't know what you're talking about. You're a young kid. I was telling wealthy people too. I sold my last investment property, except for one of them, December. I sold one in December of 2006. And then my personal house, I think it was February, March of 2007. Weeks later, the subprime market crashed. So I got out of those deals right before the market crashed. But what happened was I stopped making money because none of my listings were selling. So I had to downsize my life. So I sold my Cadillac Escalade, my BMW, my toys, my $1 million house, and I moved into this tiny little apartment with a roommate. So talk about rock bottom. I felt like I was back in that garage. Like literally, I went from having $1 million house to paying $700 a month in rent. Like that's how bad it got. I mean, I had no idea how to make money. In 2007, at one point, I went over 4 months without a paycheck, working 12 to 18-hour days. So most people, they quit, and I never quit. And throughout that, I was just always trying different things. So I started doing short sales in 2009, and then early 2010, I did a short sale. It had a first lien, a second lien, a third lien, an HOA lien, and an IRS lien. I negotiated this freaking thing for like 11 months. I found the buyer. I found the seller, negotiated with the banks, negotiated with the IRS. At the end, I got a check for $7,000. $7,000. And the investor that bought it, well, he cut the lawn. He steam cleaned the carpets. He painted the inside. Well, he hired someone to paint the inside. And a couple of days later, he sold it and he made a profit of over $130,000. So that was the exact moment in my life that I realized I was on the wrong side of the equation. And in that moment, I said, all right, I need to be a real estate investor. At this time, I think I'm 28 years old. Again, the market's in shambles. I'm living in an apartment. I'm driving a car with roll-up windows. I literally had to sell everything I had. And I started pitching everybody. It's like, hey, the opportunity's here to invest in real estate. So I would go to people and say, hey, you want to partner with me? You want to invest with me? I started trying to raise private money. Every single person I talked to shut me down. Every single person said, you're too young. It's too risky. You don't know what you're doing. It's too speculative. But I kept going. And every time someone would tell me no, it pissed me off a little bit more to where I was going to prove them wrong. I love proving people wrong because I do feel like anything is possible in life. I mean, shit, we put a man on the moon. You're telling me I can't go flip a house?
Exactly.
I mean, come on. Let's be real here. So I kept going. And then finally, one day I pitched the only successful, wealthy person I know. And his name was Pete DeBest, who is still one of my business partners today. And within seconds, he goes, sure. I was like, did I hear that right? He goes, yeah. If you find a deal, we'll flip it together. You do the work, I'll put up the money. I'm like, done. So the deal I made was I do all the work. I find it, I fix it, I sell it. They fund it. We split profits 50-50. So here's what I learned in that moment. We're all told, to network, and we're all told to raise money from people we know. But here's the biggest problem. The people that we ask, and this is for everybody listening to this podcast right now, they don't know what to do either. They're not real estate investors. You're going to get bad advice. They're going to tell you it's risky. They're going to tell you it's no. But why in the world would you ever take advice from someone that's never done it? So what I found is you need to make sure you're asking the right people. And another big misconception is, who is that right person? I remember growing up, if there was someone in the neighborhood, like a couple blocks over with a C-Class Mercedes, I was like, they've got to be rich. They have a Mercedes. I'm going to go ask them what to do. They don't know what to do. And that's the beautiful thing about today in technology. Like, you can learn from real influential people. Like, like huge names, Grant Cardone, Ed Milet, Jamil Damji, Pace Morby. Like there's so many incredible people out there you can learn from. So anyways, make sure you're asking the right people. So he says yes. We bought our first flip in Santa Ana, California, paid $115,000 for it. Got it done start to finish with the buyer in under 60 days. I did all the work myself, project managed, and I did everything wrong. I electrocuted myself. I burned my feet with acid. I painted all the baseboards to the new flooring. And before I started that flip, I was actually at another real estate convention in Las Vegas. So I bought the flip. I go to a convention right as I'm about to start. I get invited to go sit in the very front VIP row, where normally you have to pay a lot of money. And I got invited to sit there because 2 seats opened up, and my friend was the vice president of Coldwell Banker. He said, come sit in the front. So at the break, everybody came up to us, and they're like, well, who are you guys? Well, here's the thing, though. We looked really sharp, and here's why we looked sharp. The night before, Mike Ferry told us to go out and buy clothing we can't afford. He told us to go to a dinner we can't afford and go drink wine we can't afford and live a life we can't afford just for one night to see what it's like at that next level. And to this day, it was one of the most incredible nights of my life. Like, I'll never forget that night. So now I went out and I bought a Zegna suit for $800. I got it 60% off. I'll never forget. And I remember swiping that card with my stomach turning. Am I really spending $800 on a suit right now? So the next day at the break, I ended up meeting a guy who was on stage earlier talking about how he makes $800,000 a year. I'm thinking $800,000 a year. What? I mean, how do you even make that type of money? I remember thinking it's like that was such a big number. So I'm talking about the break, and he's telling me he has local TV shows out in Palm Springs, like paid programming on the weekends where he's showcasing listings. And I said, okay, well, what does that do? He's like, well, people recognize me. I'm like, okay, well, that's cool, but what does that do? He goes, well, then they start doing business with me. And then I was like, shit, man, that's smart TV. So I leave Vegas, and this must have been a day or two after Vegas. I can't stop thinking about that conversation. And it's like 10 o'clock at night. My ex-wife, Christina, she has 1 foot going up the stairs. She looks over, she's like, you coming to bed? And I looked at her, I was like, no, I'm going to figure out a way to get us a TV show. And then she started laughing at me because I always did the craziest shit. I still do. She said, TV show. She goes, well, what are we going to do a TV show on? I was like, well, I thought for a second. I was like, well, we just bought a house to flip. What if we flip houses on TV? And in that moment, that was the birth of Flip or Flop. So in that exact moment, and here's why taking action and speed is important. I didn't wait 1 or 2 weeks to maybe do it. In that exact moment, I jumped on Google, Hollywood production companies. They came up. I hit the websites, clicked the button that said casting, and I sent her pictures of what I wanted to do. I woke up the next day. One of them wrote back, said, yes, we like you guys. Send us a home video. So I documented the process on home video. And it was great because, like I said, I electrocuted myself. I burned my feet with acid. I did all these stupid things. And they liked the home video. So then they said, we want to do a sizzle reel, which is a 2-day professional shoot with a real cameraman, real director, and they make a 5-minute video. So we did that, sent that out to all the networks. Nobody wanted it. Crickets. Okay, so I was like, okay, well, the idea didn't work. At least I tried. 10 months later, I'm on Black Gold Golf Course. I get a call from the production company. They're like, well, you're not going to believe this. We just got off the phone with HGTV, and they want to do a pilot. So that was the beginning of the journey. So summer of 11, we shot a pilot for a house flipping show, which I eventually came up with the name Flip or Flop, by the way.
Ah, very cool.
Inception and the name. There you go.
This is
not only, it's not all looks. It's great.
This is insane.
People get nobody found me. Nobody helped. Like, I put my ass on TV. I hustled my way on there, Nobody found me. And by the way, if you're waiting to be found, no one's going to find you. If you want something in life, you got to go get it. That's it. Bottom line.
Tarek, I think this is the coolest part about this whole thing is that when somebody's watching like the first season, by the way, you're at almost 150 or 150 plus episodes now. It's 10 years later. So when they watched the first episode, they didn't realize that you were actually a rookie flipper. I think it's like they're watching and thinking this guy's an absolute expert. He knows exactly what he's doing. And it turns out you were learning this process along the way. Can you just talk about like that whole thing?
I was just about to get there. I had no idea what I was doing. And here's the best part about my entire story. I shoot the pilot. They said the odds of getting picked up are really slim. And if it does, it's going to take a long time. 2 weeks later, I get a contract coming in on my email to do 13 episodes of a global house flipping show. I was like so excited, right? But there was 2 problems. Do you guys know what those problems are?
What are the houses, dude? And where's the money?
Well, one, I don't know how to flip houses. And 2, where am I going to get all this money to do 13 houses in 10 months? I had only done 3 the entire year. So I was like, shit. So then I called my lawyer at the time, who took me on as a client with the $2,500 retainer at $200 a month payment plan.
Right. Nice guy.
Yeah. And I was like, hey, dude, so like if I sign this thing, what's the worst that can happen? And he goes, well, they can sue you. So I remember I was sitting in my apartment, looking at my couch, looking at my finance table, looking at my TV, and I was like, they can have it. I signed that thing. And I signed it because here it is. Historically, I always pull things off because I'm willing to put in the work. So I was like, listen, if I sign this contract, I'm going to do whatever it takes to make it happen. And here's what it did. I couldn't buy houses that were occupied because I didn't have the time to evict people. We needed to film them. So I would prospect just like we do all day. You know, I would cold call, I'd door knock, and then also I would go to the auctions. And every single night from 10 p.m. till 4 a.m. by myself, I would drive all of Southern California, driving by the houses that were going to the auction the next morning because I wanted to see if anybody lived there. So I would drive from 10 p.m. to 4 a.m. I'd be at the auctions by 9 a.m. bidding on houses. And then I would get there to bid. My max bid on a house would be like 300. Opening bid 200, 220, 250. I'm like 300. The next guy's like 310, 320. And then people were buying it for like 430. I'm like, well, how the hell am I going to get a house? They're paying 130 grand more because I was going against all the hedge funds. But I knew I had a contract and I knew I couldn't quit. So I kept doing this. And then about 2, maybe 3 weeks out of doing this and just completely getting my ass kicked, not sleeping at night, exhausted, I bid on a house and nobody else bid. And guess what? It was a great deal. So then I learned something. I learned if I keep showing up, eventually I'm going to get lucky. And that's what happened. So that first year, that's how I did it. I started buying at the auctions, and then I started doing short sales, and then I pulled it off. And then, as you know, it became the most watched house flipping show in TV history.
Just like that. The funny thing is like you had so many excuses and opportunities to quit. Like you had this like, look, I don't know how this is going to work. I'm just this guy. I can't compete against the hedge funds. And you didn't. Can you talk about the process of learning how to flip while you were actually shooting? Because my thing is like, you're taking all this time in the day to actually shoot. How did you create systems? I'm sure it took you a couple seasons, right? But like you were faking it till you make it. Like what's the process of having all these cameras in your face, kind of knowing in the back of your head, like, okay, I actually got to figure this shit out behind the scenes?
Yeah, it's just about that work ethic. You know, I mean, I have a very strong work ethic because everything in my life came through hard work, you know, and I learned that through sports as a kid. I worked my ass off. And, you know, TV did some pretty incredible things for me. So during that first season, I mean, I would be filming, and if I'm not filming, I'm working. And I was putting in, I'm not kidding, 18-hour days, like nonstop grinding, 18-hour days. Like I was going crazy. And then as the show continued, I realized, well, I can't be everywhere. I'm exhausted. And it forced me to learn to delegate. It forced me to learn to hire. It forced me to learn to rely on other people. So then I started bringing in salespeople, right? So then I started building a company. So what happened was, instead of me doing everything all the time, I started building a company that the company was doing everything all the time. So I worked really hard in removing myself from the day-to-day. And I really wanted to work on the business instead of in the business, which is what I mostly do now.
Cool. So fast forward to today. I know we're skipping a couple of years here, but in the meantime of like filming all these episodes, you're still building your portfolio on the side as well, right? Outside. So can you catch us up to where your portfolio is at today? Just kind of like a bird's eye view of what it looks like. And then also talk about your capital raising company and what you're kind of focused on today.
Yeah. So flips, we've done over 800 flips since 2010. So we've done pretty good there. Rental properties, I have about 200 rental properties across the country. These are houses, SFRs, and these are purchased with my own money, not outside money, me and my partner. And then with TEM Capital, which is this is what I'm most excited about. We've acquired 5 apartment buildings, and we're developing one self-storage facility, and we're currently purchasing one self-storage facility. And then going into 23, we're going to be developing a 138 unit apartment complex in North Hollywood, which is my hometown. Super excited about that. We're going into another multifamily deal in Orlando. I think it's 276 units. But TEM Capital is just my passion. Over the years, everybody, they watch me on TV, they see me on social, and they always want to do deals with me. And I never really had a way to make that happen until now. So now if someone's out there and they want to partner with me on these commercial deals, they can.
Love it.
So that kind of weaves in back in Brian.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Brian, we'll jump you back in here now, dude. Sorry that was a little lengthy here, but we needed a little background on Tarek to see kind of how this thing all comes to life. So give a little brief background on you. I know that you are we know you're a commercial real estate investor, multifamily operator, your partners in Elevate, but just give us a little background on you and then kind of how you and Tarek linked up and how you both flow together.
Yeah. And first of all, I love that story. I mean, that doesn't get you hyped up. I don't know what will. I mean,
exactly.
That's definitely, I mean, we can talk about it, but I've seen that in action, like the taking action right away. Like before we even left Northwest Arkansas last trip, he was messaging the mayor of Centerton. He was messaging brokers, like trying to get more deals going. As soon as he didn't even have a time to think about it. As soon as it's a thought, I think taking action is huge. That was huge for me too. I went to school for economics, and I was taught to overthink everything, overanalyze everything. But when you get into business and you get into the real world, you have to kind of unteach yourself to overthink things and just take action. So I mean, huge recipe for success for anyone. But yeah, so I guess if you guys saw the last episode, I got started in multifamily as something to kind of go with my sales position. So I was in sales, crushing it. And when I got out of college, I wanted to be a personal financial advisor. I wanted to be a stockbroker. I wanted to do well for myself. I didn't come from a lot of money. So I got into sales, put my head down, and I started doing really well. I was a top performer at a sales company, and I was maxing out my Roth 401k account. And I knew I had to do something outside of that. So I messed around with the stock market. I put a bunch of money in GoPro, and it went from $35 to $5. And I was like, okay, nothing was in my control, what that CEO did, what that company did. But I was sitting there watching it like it was in my control. I was spending all this time on it, but no matter how much time I spent on it, it was just out of my control. So all roads led me to real estate. Wealth created in the US was what I saw at the time through stocks or through real estate. So I dove in the real estate. And the most simplest thing for me to understand at the time was single family. So I had my life savings of $25,000 at the time. I bought a little $90,000 rental, made about 20 offers before I got that one accepted, rented it out, managed it myself, drew up the lease. It was good. There was no horror stories or anything like that. The guy paid me $950 at the first of the month. Really nice guy. My mortgage was $450. It was fine. It was just going to take way too long to get really where I wanted to go. So, I looked at everything and everybody in commercial real estate. The one thing they said was, I wish I would have got started earlier in commercial real estate. I wish I would have got started earlier in this realm. And I saw the economies of scale with it. So I understood rental property investing, and I understood the scalability of commercial real estate. And that's what led me to multifamily and really dive in on multifamily. So I, like Tarek, I went to some seminars on multifamily real estate, dove in on every sort of educational piece I could, listened to podcasts, and I bought a 12 unit shortly after that first unit. I had a family friend give me a promissory note. So they said they just wanted 10% return on their money. They weren't interested in equity or anything like that. They gave me $100,000 promissory note, and I got this 12 unit apartment complex. From there, I found another 20 units. My girlfriend, now my wife, she would drive us around these dirty looking apartments that looked crappy. She would drive, I would write down the address, take a picture, and we would send the owners letters in the mail saying, hey, we're buying apartment complexes in the area. And we would send them a picture of their apartment and say, hey, you don't have to list with an agent. We'll even do seller financing. I would pitch seller financing to them like it was in their best interest to do seller, which it's a good advantage to them. But I needed seller financing for the deal to work, but they didn't know that I had to have seller financing. But I got a 20 unit seller financing deal there, and then I refinanced that other 12 unit into another 12 unit, paid out my investor. So I built up a portfolio of about 70 multifamily units that I managed, owned myself. And then I started getting family involved, and I built up a portfolio of about 500 units. So these are 82 unit apartments, 20 units, 12 units, 52 units. And I'm partnering with family and friends. I didn't have a business card. I didn't have a website at the time. I just had an email and a phone, and I was wheeling and dealing these apartments. And at some point I knew I was going to have to go bigger. At some point I was going to run out of these small mom and pop owners. And that's when I partnered up with Elevate about 2 years ago. They were doing large apartment buildings, like 150 units, 400 units, 300 units, 800 units at a time. And that's like this whole portfolio of what I was doing. It took me four years to get 500 units, and they were taking down 500 units in one apartment. They had an in-house construction team. So for me, I knew syndication was always in the back of my mind, which is buying 100 units to 1,000 units with other operators, other investors. So we got connected in Dallas. And then I started raising capital for them. And then I became CIO earlier this year, Chief Investments Officer and partner at Elevate. So now we own and operate about 6,000 units across the country. And that's what I'm doing now is buying multifamily units across the country, Texas, Arkansas, Oklahoma, Sunbelt states, and getting to partner up with guys like Tarek and TEM.
Love it. So thank you for painting that picture again. I think people, it's just so cool to see how quickly you were able to build this. Now, connect you to Tarek. So how did you guys meet? How did this come across? Obviously, a lot of people know Tarek being a celebrity. How were you able to use your skill set and his skill set to parlay into this new venture?
Yeah, I think I'll let Tarek.
Well, it's probably different than everyone's thinking. So Elevate didn't find me. I found Elevate. So like I said, massive action. I was on a mission to partner with strong operators. So instead of sitting on my ass and waiting for someone to show up, I got on social media, I got on the internet, and I started looking. Through that research, I found Brian's partner, George, who has a social media page. I reviewed George's social media page. I read his bio. I did some research on him. I liked them. And that's where the relationship started. And I'm going to go back to the point where I said earlier, no one is ever going to do anything for you. You have to do it yourself. I'm Tarek El Moussa, Mr. Famous, blah, blah, blah. I was straight up prospecting like a salesman. I was prospecting, and that's how I found Elevate. And through that, we've created this amazing relationship. We just closed on a 376 unit deal last week. And all of that came from a message on social media, right? Like,
it's amazing. The only reason that we're talking today is because of a message on social media too. So just the power of the internet and connection. And I know Ryan had a question that you want to go into too.
I think it's incredible. Well, so we're kind of delving into the syndication space as well and raising capital. We have operators coming to us and saying, hey, we have deals. My question to you, Tarek, is like, how do you vet and not really trying to put Elevate on the spot, but clearly you found something in them that you liked, and that's why you went into business with them. It's like, how are you vetting these different types of operators to be like, hey, this is the one I want to go into business with and put my reputation on the line?
I mean, honestly, spending time getting to know them. So like before I do a deal with anyone, that's like, we got to know each other in person, spend time together. So it's one thing is to get to know them as people, right? Really understand who they are. And two, of course, how long have they been in business? What does their track record look like? What have they done? And of course, Elevate's done incredible things, and it's ran by totally solid individuals. So it turned out to be just a perfect relationship. And now, it's like, I'm looking for deals now to bring them on my deals. They're getting deals. They're bringing me in on their deals. And it's just a great relationship.
That's amazing. I wanted to talk we kind of went through your story, I would say relatively quickly. You've done a lot in those years. There's a couple personal things that you dealt with too, and hardships that weren't or aren't always talked about. And I think it's commendable because you're a human being, right? Like not this Tarek El Moussa celebrity. Like you beat cancer twice. And I think people listening can really relate to that. Everyone's got shit going on in their lives. You may not know what that is. So can you just talk to us about like how you even found out, and then how you were able to continue to live your life and build your businesses while recovering and healing and staying motivated?
Yeah. I mean, it was tough, with my cancers, and people, it's hard being in the spotlight, because I can tell you how many nasty messages I get. Oh, you're so fat. Oh, you're so ugly. Oh, look at you. I'm like, well, I'm sorry. I'm dying of cancer. I gained 50 pounds. But yeah, it was going into season 2 of Flip or Flop. We had just started filming, and there was a nurse out of Texas that was watching my show. And she actually saw a lump on the screen on my throat. She emailed the network, who then sent it to the production company, who then sent it to me. So I got the email, hey, there's a lump on your throat. You should get it checked out. And I'll never forget the email. It started off as, I'm not sure if this is a joke, but we wanted to send it to you. And I was already having problems in my neck area, clearing my throat all the time. Like I always felt tight. My normal doctor, he said I had allergies and gave me nose spray, and that was it. So, and I went to him twice for the same issue. And then, so because I got that email, I went and got an ultrasound done, and the ultrasound, it looked a little bit off. So then they wanted to do a biopsy. So then they did a biopsy. The results came back as atypical, meaning it could or it couldn't be cancer. They didn't know. So then they booked me for exploratory surgery. It was supposed to be a short, maybe 45 minutes under the knife, look around, see what's going on. So I go under. The surgery ended up being a 4-hour surgery. When I woke up, when my eyes opened, it was my ex-wife looking down on me, just crying. And the first words that came out of my mouth were, I have cancer, don't I? And she said, yeah. So I found out I had cancer after I had the surgery to remove it. And turns out I had stage 3 thyroid cancer. And then also it spread to my lymph nodes. So it was pretty far along. And during this part of my life, once they remove your thyroid, you have to do something called radioactive iodine, which was a few months later. My whole system was out of whack, and I was barely eating anything. I was gaining like 2 pounds a day. So I went from 185 to 235 pounds on TV. Like if you watch the early seasons, I don't even look like the same human. So because of this misdiagnosis, we looked at my old medical records, and then we noticed a year before, the same doctor that misdiagnosed my neck had mentioned an irregular testicle exam, physical, but there was never any notes, any referrals. So I said, okay, I should go get this checked out. So on the same day, I go to see my thyroid cancer doctor. There was an opening last minute down the hall to go get an ultrasound, on my stuff. Yeah,
got stuff.
It's an uncomfortable situation. There's a guy doing the ultrasound. I'm like, yeah, okay. So we're just shooting the shit, talking. He's local. He's from Huntington Beach. He's a surfer. Blah, 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 just shooting the shit. And all of a sudden, this guy gets real quiet on me. And I was like, uh-oh. I was like, why is this guy getting so quiet? I was like, hey, dude, what's going on? He's like, nothing. I'm like, well, there's something's going on. I mean, you're being real quiet all of a sudden. He goes, well, I'm not a doctor. I said, well, I didn't say you were a doctor. I said, well, what do you see? And then he goes, well, are you in pain? And I was like, am I in pain? And I wasn't in pain. I'm like, am I in pain? He's like, well, yeah, because if you're in pain, you should go down the hall to the emergency room. Just like that. It was the most eerie sentence I've ever heard in my life.
Weird.
And then right when he said that, I knew something was wrong. I go to the emergency room. 20 minutes later, I then found out I have testicular cancer. So now, and by the way, these are totally different cancers. It's not one that spread, 2 different cancers. So now I'm like, I don't know, I think I was 29, 30 years old, and I'm thinking, this is it. I'm going to die. But you know what? I had my young daughter. I had my wife, and I refused to quit. I said, all right, well, I'm not quitting. I mean, I hope I don't die, but if I don't, I still have a business. I still have shows. I still got a wife. I still have my kid. So I just kept fighting, and it was really tough on me, man. I was throwing up on set, dizzy all the time. I filmed all the way up until they rolled me into those surgeries. I filmed all the way until they gave me the radioactive iodine. I got the surgeries a week after the surgery. Like if you look, you can see the big scar on camera and I'm like, my throat's still raspy. Like I went back to work because I don't want anything to slow me down. So I just fought my way through cancer. But yeah, it was definitely a very challenging experience.
Wow, you're a warrior, man. I think it's just that's something that maybe is not talked about enough. And like I said, a lot of people are going through stuff. So thanks for sharing that and being so open with us. We're hearing, we've got people in our lives that are popping up randomly, and you're like, it's just part of life. As you get older, things happen. But it's nice to share the story and to show how you got through it. So,
but here's the interesting thing, though. The year that I went through these 2 cancers, I was miserable. I quadrupled the size of my house flipping business, and I filmed a TV show.
If that doesn't show you what's possible, like, come on.
Yeah, I mean, did you just take it sounds like it's a similar scenario of like in the beginning when you're just not taking no for an answer. You were saying that about your business. You were saying that about cancer. You're just not taking that as an answer. You're like, I'm just going to figure this out. Like I have to, right? Yeah.
Here's an analogy. This is how I look at life. If someone said, everybody wants to lose weight, they want to get in better shape, right? They talk about starting, they read about starting, they kind of try, they kind of do, but they never really do. If you took someone that said they wanted to get in shape and they went to the gym from 8 a.m. until 8 p.m., 7 days a week, they did sit-ups, they ran, they played basketball, they played tennis, they lifted weights, are they going to get ripped?
100%.
Yes, no matter what. Why? Because the amount of effort, whether they even know what they're doing or not. Same thing with real estate. If you are taking massive action, you're going to figure it out as you go. And no matter what, you're going to get some deals.
100%.
So let me ask you this, and just to bring it back to like some of our listeners, and a lot of people are early on in their investing journey, or maybe they're up to like, 20 units. We have people all over the spectrum, but a lot of people still have their W-2 jobs while they're investing. And I don't know, your story is a little bit different here, but do you have any advice? I'm sure you've met plenty of people over the years. Like, at what point do you make the move to go full-time real estate investor? And at what time, like, can you feel comfortable doing that? Because at people's jobs, they feel comfortable. Like if you're making $100,000, you're like, I'm good.
I feel like you're going to say day one, but that's just a guess.
Here's the quickest answer. In order to quit your day job as a real estate investor, you need to figure out a repeatable system to find deals. The second you figure out a repeatable system to find deals, get a couple deals, then you can quit your day job. Here's the biggest problem. People, they'll go get a deal, but they don't know how they got that deal. So how do you quit your job not knowing when your next deal is going to come? Or they want to be a real estate investor, and then they spend 90% of the time learning about property management. No, 90% of your time needs to go towards finding deals. 10%, they can go to all the other stuff. 90% of your time needs to go towards sourcing deals.
Got it. So, and I know you said that's like they're your number one skill set. Like, hey, if you knock me out of the game, I know how to underwrite and find deals like that. That's just what I'm good at. And like, truly, if that's the case, you have a deal flow coming in all the time. However, marketing comes into play with that too. So I'm just thinking about for us, for other investors out there, how do you get really good at underwriting deals and finding deals? And what tips and tricks do you have for saying like, hey, listen, man, like I know how to find deals in any market that there is. And what can people be doing?
Yeah, I'm probably the most simplest guy you're ever going to be. This is how I live my life when it comes to real estate. Real estate is nothing more than a contact sport. And I learned this at 20 years old. The more contacts you make, the more leads you're going to generate. The more leads you're going to generate, the more deals you're going to get. The more deals you're going to get, the more money you're going to make. So like for me, become obsessed with making contacts with people that can help you. Cold call 50 brokers a day. Walk 5 buildings every day. Go walk a building. Are you going to buy the building you're walking? No, probably not. Are you going to make a relationship with a broker that might send you a deal next month? Yes, you are. Massive, massive action. So if it were me right now, if I stopped doing everything I did and I just wanted to find commercial real estate deals from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., I would book my schedule with commercial brokers all day just looking at property. All day.
Wonderful.
And in between those, I would make calls to other brokers asking for off-market deals. That's all I would do all day.
Love it. So let's talk about then the next phase of, let's say people do that. They get really good, just like you did, because you got exceptional at it and you still are today. Then their business starts to grow. And then they're wearing 10 hats, right? And that's how we kind of feel like we're like, oh shit, we were trying to find deals. We were trying to manage the properties. We were trying to manage a contractor. And this is a very small scale, nothing even close to anything that you've seen. But I'm curious, what were some things that you did to remove yourself from the working in the business and start working on the business so that you can put right person, right seat, and then have your business flourish?
Yeah. Well, the biggest, the number one thing is creating a system that's going to bring in money. So I need to make sure I have revenue coming in.
Yep.
So while I'm working on this other stuff, I still need to be making money based on what I've built. And then all this other stuff just adds to what you built. So for me, you build the base, something that's making money, and then you go start learning new things to throw into that bucket so you can start making more money. And here's the truth. The hardest part about business, the hardest part about scaling, the hardest part about delegating, it's the people. It's the people. One bad egg, one bad person can take out your entire organization. It's happened to me. One toxic person can take you out. Meaning you got to make sure that the entire team is positive, happy, rowing in the right direction with the same vision in mind. It's all about the people. My biggest mistake looking back is I would always try to fix or change people instead of replacing people. So you got to be big on bringing people in and putting people out. It's like in and out, in and out. And then every 10 in and out, you find a rock star.
Makes sense. So they say, what is it? Hire slow, fire fast, that type of thing.
Yeah.
Perfect. So as we wind down the show, I know you have limited time here. I want to just talk about your and Brian's plans for the next, let's say, talk about 2023. Like
world domination.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
Clearly.
Honestly,
Exactly.
I'm not sure if I doubt it, to be honest with you, if that's really what you're going for. But what are you guys looking to do in 2023? I know that you're the capital raising here and Brian is the operations. Can you give us a snapshot of what you're looking to do and maybe how people listening might even be able to get involved?
Yeah. So we're not just capital raising. We are a full-blown commercial real estate company. Just so you know, we're acquiring deals, we're building stuff, like we're doing everything. But in the relationship with Brian thus far, we've been more of a capital partner. But right now we're working on deals where I'm hoping Brian will bring the capital in on deals. So we're working together on different things. So in 2023, we just want to continue working together, continuing growing the relationship. We're going to start doing some more marketing, joint marketing together, probably. We're going to be looking at some more development deals together. Because I think development's a huge opportunity to be building in 23, 24, 25, and then stabilize 26, 27. So a lot more of that. But me personally, I actually have a cash flow from commercial real estate book coming out in a couple of weeks here with one of my business partners, Anthony Morrison. I don't know if you know Anthony, but he's an internet guru, but also a rock star real estate investor. So that book's going to be coming out. We're also launching a multifamily or a commercial real estate investing course. So there's a lot of big things coming for 2023.
You're ripping them roaring, man. It's amazing. Well, we're going to wind down the show here. We made it to the last drop, which is the last segment of our show. And the question for you is, and Brian, you can answer this too. I know you did a last episode, but maybe, I don't know if it changed, but Tarek, we'll ask you first. Knowing what you know now, if you could go back in time to speak to 18-year-old Tarek, what advice would you give him based on all you've seen and experienced in the world so far?
One, think way, way bigger than you ever did, and then times that by 10. So that's one. Two, don't flip the real estate. Hold on to the real estate, let it go up, borrow against it, buy more. If I could go back and flip no houses, I would have done that. So those are my two biggest things.
Perfect. Brian, how about you?
Yeah, I would agree on number one for sure. I mean, think bigger. And then that would have led me to go into commercial real estate sooner. At 18, I mean, if I would have been thinking about commercial real estate, obviously all roads led me to where I am, blessed life. But I definitely think getting started in commercial and multifamily sooner would have been great.
You know, it's amazing. We talked to so many real estate investors. Your 145th episode, and pretty much every single real estate investor says that they should have held on to more properties that they ended up flipping. So if the guy that is like the staple in flipping is saying that, then I think people should be listening. It's obviously a great way to generate capital, but for the long term, it sounds like buy and holds the way that you're envisioning the future. So very cool.
Yeah,
very cool.
Yeah. So I'll just end on two things. So with my companies, So with TEM Capital right now, we take accredited investors. So if anyone wants to partner on deals with me, they can go to temcapital.co. If someone's out there and they want to be a real estate investor, but they're not accredited, they don't have the funds, but they want to learn. Well, actually, I teach people how to invest in real estate and how to flip houses at my company, Homeschooled by Tarek. So at Homeschooled by Tarek, we teach you how to invest in real estate. At TEM Capital, we invest in real estate with you.
Beautiful.
It's incredible.
Thank you so much for coming on, Tarek. It's a pleasure. We're a little shell shocked here to be able to talk to you. It's been awesome, Brian. So thank you so much for the introduction, and we really appreciate your time.
Awesome, guys. Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in this week to the Weekly Juice Podcast. If you liked what you heard, please leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, subscribe, and share with friends. The more ratings we get, the more ears we'll get on our show, and in turn, we'll be able to provide you with more high-quality guests. You can also find us on Instagram at Weekly Juice Pod, where we post daily tips and tricks and document our own journey towards financial freedom. Make sure to tune in every Wednesday to get your weekly juice.